Okay, good evening and welcome to the Living Marriage, Chapter 20. Tonight we're going to be discussing understanding kavod. This is really the second part of Section 6. I'm calling it Chapter 20 for simplicity. Understanding kavod. In the previous chapter, he mentioned the foundations of Shalom Bayis is love and honor. And, from the Gemara in Yevamos, the Gemara says that if you want to have a successful marriage, you should love your wife like your body and honor her more than your body. So those are the two main components in a marriage. So here is discussing honor, and in the next couple of chapters, you're going to discuss love. Because again, he said in the previous chapter, like the Rambam says, at first you honor your wife, and then you love her. My interpretation was like the Gemara. The Gemara mentions love first. They're two different aspects. It's not. I don't think one comes before the other one. My explanation was, and I'm going to talk about this more as he talks about what he thinks honor, the author thinks honor really is. Love is to love those aspects of the wife that you really find beautiful, whether it's her appearance, whether it's personality, whether it's character traits. And the kavod is to honor someone when you see negative in somebody else. Nonetheless, you give them dignity, you give them respect, and you don't belittle them on those negative character traits or negative blemishes that they have, whether they be physical, whether they be personality, whether they be in character traits. You don't belittle them, and you treat them with respect. That's what it means to treat someone with respect. Now, because there's a big misunderstanding in what real honor is, kavod. Kavod is talked about, you don't talk about it so much. When I was growing up, we don't really talk about honoring somebody. I mean, we know about honoring your parents, maybe honoring your teachers. When I got into the more yeshiva shul, like honor becomes like a big thing, like kavod Torah, mechabed the gedolim, and things like that. Kavod for Talmud Chacham, you stand up for a Talmud Chacham. I remember in my yeshiva days, there was a specific incident I remembered. I learned Maseches Kedushin, and Kedushin talks about the mitzvah of kima, of getting up. It says in Parshas Kedoshim, right? Mnei seva takum, mnei seva takum, sedar pnei. I forgot the pasuk. It says you should mahader a Talmud Chacham, and you should be for an elder person. You should get up, and you should do a hidur for a Talmud Chacham, for a Chacham or something like that. I don't remember the pasuk. Kedosh. It's terrible that I don't remember the pasuk in my Bar Mitzvah parsha, which is Kedoshim. But they say vatakum adarta pnei zakin. That's what it says. Okay, now I'm remembering it. You honor the elderly person over 7 years old. 7 years old. Pirkei Avos says it's seva. And you should be mahader pnei zakin. Zakin is interpreted as zesha kana chachma. The Gemara says in Kiddushin, someone who has wisdom, Talmud Chacham who has wisdom. And the Gemara learned that for both of them, you're supposed to get up. You're supposed to honor them by getting up. Now, literally, so I remember, in yeshiva, it was Rosh Yeshiva, Yaakov Friedman spoke, and it was a kiddush, and he got up, and he finished speaking, and he was leaving, and then one guy, there was only two people in the yeshiva who actually kept this halakha, me and somebody else. So he got up, and I was sitting right behind him, and then I got up. I felt this tremendous, aura of respect. You're supposed to get up. After when they come within Dalit Amos, when they come 6 feet away, then you start getting up. And he got up, and I got up, and we were in this wonderful, majestic display of honor. And then, I came back to America, and I was in Yeshiva Shar Yashuv, and the Rosh Yeshiva there, of Naftali Yeager, he was a big Talmud Chacham, was known as a big Talmud Chacham, so I felt I should be getting up for him. I was even, in the beginning of my stint there, I was actually in his shir. And I sat fairly close to him because I was in his shir, like a table next to him, and he would walk, to his office or walk by sometimes, and he would go within Dalit Amos, and I kept on getting up, and everyone was looking at me weird. Like Shar Yashuv is not a place like Rav Yaakov Friedman's. There's not Rav Yaakov Friedman was much more serious back then. Now, since the Israelis came, it's a little less serious, but back in the days it was much more serious. But even now, it's much more serious in a place like Shar Yashuv, which is basically a Baal Tshuva yeshiva. I think they tried to actually change it in the past couple of years. But people were looking at me funny, and I called my Rabbi Yaakov Friedman. I said, listen, Rosh Yeshiva is a big Talmud Chacham. I have to do it. He said, you could do a hidur. I mean, hidur means just, get up a little bit off your chair. Don't stand up fully. And that way, I was able to, I don't know why that was okay, because if he's really a Talmud Chacham, the Shulchan Aruch Paskin, you have to get up within Dalit Amos. No one was getting up. Obviously, no one was doing hidur, but I felt it was necessary to do it. By understanding now, I have a different understanding of what kima is really now, and I'll fit it into the aspect of kavod. I'll tell you in a second. But when you think of honor, right, in the yeshivish world, it's such a big thing, kavod, honoring something. You think it's like something that's exquisite, something that's the gadol, the Talmud Chacham. You give them honor. The Torah, you give it honor. Now, he says in the Western world, right? This is what he says: the mistake of false kavod is rooted in a misunderstanding that kavod begins with the one who gives kavod, which is like little gold coins that one can toss to whoever finds favor in his eyes. Each person can decide where to throw his coins, and when one amasses a large amount of honor coins, quote unquote, he is on top and becomes an honorable person because he successfully gathered the most honor from those who respect him. This is the perception of the Western world, which produces an empty shell of false values in a world that encourages everyone to find favor in the eyes of others. Basically, what he means by that is that people associate honor with fame on Instagram, or followers on Twitter, or subscribers on YouTube. That's considered honor. People are giving you attention. People are, following you on Twitter, on Instagram. So, you're a respected person. Now, he says that's what people associate with respect. I don't think people associate with respect. No, that makes me a famous person, right? Famous people are the big celebrities on Twitter. They're followed by the most people. Cristiano Ronaldo, maybe the most famous person in the world. Maybe not now that he went to Saudi Arabia, but basically, the most famous person in the world, he says that's what people honor. I don't think they honor those people. They adore those people. They idol those people. They don't honor them. And when I think of an honor, I think to honor somebody is like a Shabbos meal or a wedding meal, right? You want to make a wedding meal more festive. You honor the chassan and kala in making a festive meal. Or you get an honor, you win an award or something like that. You win an Academy Award, an Oscar or something like that. You were an incredible actor in, Maverick, Top Gun. Tom Cruise wins the Oscar. I don't know if he's gonna win, but you won the award, so they give you an honor. Now, all the actors are famous. Everyone knows about all the actors. They all have their Wikipedia pages, but some are longer than others. But they're all famous. But famous, he says people think fame means kavod, but he says his explanation of kavod. He says his explanation of kavod is basically, I'll read it to you. True kavod is exactly the opposite of false kavod, and it involves a two-step process. It begins with a virtuous quality found within a person, such as wisdom or chesed. Wisdom, he means Torah wisdom, or chesed. When this quality is projected to the external world, this is called the kavod itself, which is the revelation of a person's inner goodness. This could be compared to a light bulb, which has within it electric energy, which it then projects as light to the world. Kavod itself is any positive virtue that shines into this world. So basically, when you're a Talmud Chacham, and you let everyone know that you're Talmud Chacham, you're not one of the hidden Talmud Chacham. Everyone knows this guy is a big Talmud Chacham. Mr. Chaim Kanievsky, he finishes Shas once a year. So when a person who has incorporated a positive quality with essence, which he then projects to the world, is called Mechubad. He already is called someone who's honored. The kavod is found by the one who is honorable simply because he has acquired the virtuous quality which emanates from his being. When you acquire a good midah or a lot of wisdom of Torah, that's what he's talking about. So it shines, it produces a radiance from you, and it makes no difference if the virtue is actually perceived by others. Okay? Well, if it's wisdom, people have to know that you're a wise person. Although true kavod begins with the one who is mechubed and not with the one who is mechabed others can connect to the virtuous quality found by an honorable person. Kavod emanating from one who is mechubed is touching through the recognition and appreciation of its value. He then goes on to discuss how when you go ahead and honor somebody by standing up for a Talmud Chacham, by giving kavod to the Torah or something like that, or giving kavod to someone who has acquired the Torah, or someone that does chesed, as a Baal Chesed, is a big mitzvah man, so like I call Moshe. So you are being mechabed the mechubed, and he explains from Rabbeinu Yonah, based in Pirkei Avos. Pirkei Avos says, who is someone that gets honor? He honors other people, and Rabbeinu Yonah explains that when you honor other people, so they feel indebted to honor you back, right? That's the concept of Gemilas Chesed, right? The real concept of Chesed. I believe that you should pay back. Someone doesn't pay for you got to pay them back. You can't take things for free. There's nothing free in this world. I don't think there's an idea just to run around doing Chesed because you always hurt somebody. The nice thing you do always hurts someone else by the product that you're overextending yourself for one thing. You're not you're not doing an obligation you have to somebody else or to something else. That's always the way with chesed. That's why chesed is a bad thing. I don't think it's a good thing. Gemilas chesed is a great thing because it means you're an honorable, respectable person. You acknowledge that someone did a favor for you, you're going to pay them back. You're a fair person. You're not someone who just takes, you're not taking gifts from people. So he explains, Reina Yonah, that Ezu Mechuben Achabes Abrios, who is someone who's honored, as honorable. He honors other people by honoring other people, by honoring that person. So somebody who has a great quality, they're a Baal Chesed, they're someone who's a big Talmud Chacham. So they radiate their countenance, they radiate their presence in the world. And by you giving them honor, so it forces other people who see you giving honor to the person who deserves honor, and they honor you, other people honor you. So therefore it's like a two-way process. You give honor to the source of honor. To get to be that source of honor, you have to have a virtuous quality. The virtuous quality is represented by the Talmud Chacham. And when you honor that person, other people see you doing a virtuous thing by honoring a virtuous, person, and therefore they honor you back. And that's how you get honor. Now, this is a complicated thing. I mean, he's going really deep over here. I mean, honor is honor. I mean, let's just face it. Honoring, when you knight somebody, when King Charles knighted the rabbi of Great Britain, what's his name, right? Mervis, the chief rabbi, he knighted him. That's giving him honor. Now, what does honor mean? I'll tell you simply what it means. Honor just means when you give importance to someone that normally doesn't get that importance. You're giving importance, you're raising someone, their status for a moment or for a certain time or in a certain aspect. But that person never really attains, it gets more power or more recognition, right? When I honor a chassan and kala, they get honor on the night of the chassan and kala. After the Shabbat brachas, they go back to being normal people, regular people. When you honor somebody and you knight him, right? You knighted him. No one really cares who's a knight. You might get a title of knight. The process, that procession when you're honoring him, that's honor, right? When you give someone the MVP award in football. Now, Jalen Hurts might have lost his cause. He hasn't played the past couple of weeks. Let's say it probably be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. So you're honoring them. They were a famous person before, but you give them extra honor. But just because they're MVP this season doesn't mean they're going to be MVP next season. You're taking them from a status they were at. They could have been at a high status, a famous status. Some people are just regular people, and some people are famous people. Famous doesn't mean you're honored. Honor is to take someone, whether they're famous or not, and elevate them to a certain status for a certain time or in a certain aspect for a certain amount of time. And then they go back to being the regular person. And the same thing in marriage. Kibud, when you honor your wife, or you honor any person, you honor your parents, all it means is that you have the ability to treat them for a certain time or in certain regards, in ways they don't deserve, right? You're treating someone above their status. That's what kavod is, right? Kavod is, and when you see negative qualities in your wife, right, you don't belittle her in those things. You give her, right, when those traits come out in your wife, you don't yell at her, you don't belittle her for those things, you don't mention those things. To give her honor at those moments, lift her above her status. She deserves to be denigrated. She deserves to be called out for her negative traits. You let it go. So that's honoring her. And that's not an easy thing to do, right? When you're married to somebody and you have the commitment, you're not just living together, you have the commitment. That's why marriage is almost a lot of the 50% end divorce. Because when you're married to somebody, you have the commitment to somebody, you see those negative things and you're living with them, you see those negative things much more greatly than you'll see those positive. When you're dating them, you see all the positive qualities. Maybe you'll notice a little of the negative qualities, but you're so high on the other girl, the girl's so high on the boy, but then you get married, you notice those negatives, you're living together, those negative things are blaring in your ears, and it's very hard to get them out of your head. So to mechaber them, yoser migufo, right? To honor them more than yourself is to go above nature. Is to go, even though they deserve to be belittled and denigrated. Maybe someone else who you're not married to, right? If they're using, you're in a relationship with you, and they're causing you harm by their negative qualities, you're allowed to call them out for that. You're allowed to speak your mind and tell someone when they're hurting you. But when your wife, unless it's really intolerable, you should, oftentimes be quiet and not mention them. Obviously, if you can't live like that, you have to talk about it, but try to do it in a respectful way. Even though the person, the wife or the husband doesn't deserve that honor because they really have bad qualities, still honor means to treat them with respect because of the relationship, because you're married to her. You have that commitment there. You have to treat her with respect. And the wife should treat her husband with respect. For a wife, it's very hard Now, he mentions at the beginning of the chapter, he says, a certain husband once asked me that after the Torah stated, "V'hu yimshal bach," and he will rule over you, right? Referencing that after Adam and Chava ate from the tree, the Eitz Hadas, it says the curse of the woman, "V'hu yimshal bach," he will rule over you. A reference to the man who needs to rule over his wife. How is it possible to honor her as well? That was the question that this Avrich asked Ramosha Shokatavis, the author of this book. How could you honor her if you're supposed to rule over her? If I honor her, then she is my king, and I am her servant. This mistake is based on the cover of the street. When this one stands, the other one falls, and the one who was in control has the honor. So he says it's based on false honor. The author says, but it's really a good question, and the answer to the question is very simple. Meaning, people in this world, if you realize it or not, you're constantly in competition with everybody, right? This world is a competition. If you didn't realize it, it's a competition between people. We compete in so many different ways. People that are much lower than us, we don't feel the competition because we already surpassed them. And people that are way above us, we also don't feel the competition because we're not close to them. People that are close to us in the social ways or socio-sexual ways, so it's a pyramid or whatever. So those people that are close to us, we feel competition with them, wanting better. It's a power struggle. That's what life is. It's a power struggle. Ultimately, God made it in a way that really the only way to succeed is dependent on you. It's only dependent on you, and it's dependent on your decision making. I mentioned this many times that bechira chafshus, the free will, that's the way you can be. The only way you can be successful in life is to the extent that you're successful in exercising your free will and ruling over your free will and being a baal bechira chafshus. If you lose that, you lost it, and you'll end up losing in the competition of other, losing a basketball game or losing a debate or something like that. Those are all byproducts of the fact that you failed in your mission in life. Your mission in life is to exercise free will to the best that you can with all your might and all your will. But at the end of the day, we're always competing with other people. Men compete with other men, and women compete with other women for men's attention, and men compete with other men to be able to get all the women, because the best men really deserve all the women, and men who are not true men get no women. That's just the way it is, right? If you're a real man, which is really hard, which Andrew Tate talks about a lot, if you want to be a real man, which Andrew Tate I believe is, there's very few alpha or sigma males in the world. But if you reach that level, so you really reach a position of power, and that's what the Torah is saying, that ultimately man will rule over a woman. Man will rule over a woman because a man who is a true alpha male or sigma male, he will attain a status of power, confidence, and strength that will attract all the women, and he'll get all the women. The woman would rather be married to him, even though they have to be rivals with other women, than be married to someone who, might biologically be a man, but he's really not a man. A man is only dependent on whether you attract women or not. So at the end of the day, the answer to this question is quite simple, right? You can only, when you rule over somebody, you're so above them, you're more powerful than them. So then you have the ability to honor them. That's the only time, right? When you're in competition with somebody, you're close to competing with someone, right? You're in a tight basketball game with somebody. You're not going to honor those people. He has a strong foul on you. So if he fouls you, you're not going to be happy. You're not going to honor him. You're going to call him out. He does a cheap shot on you. You're in tough competition with somebody. You're not a place to honor somebody. When you're a king, when you're ruling over the other people, ruling over the world, you're the most important and powerful person in the world. The president has the ability to honor people because our prime minister has the ability to honor people. A king has the ability to honor people. He's so much more powerful than other people, so he can give them honor. He can say, you know what, you're so below me, so the things that are, negative traits, I'll overlook those things, or I'll give you, for a certain amount of time or in a certain aspect, I'll give you honor and not look at your negative traits, and, or give something, give you an award or something like that. The person who has reached the pinnacle of power and control of Memshala, and God is the ultimate, Moshel, he can honor people. He's that person that's able to honor people because he's not in competition with anybody. When you're in competition, fierce competition with somebody, you can't honor somebody else because you'll pick on those two. You'll say, if you're in competition, you'll look for all their faults to try to beat them. But when you're more powerful than somebody else, your complete power. So then you can honor people. And that's what it means that hu yim shalbach. If the husband, it's really hard because the way of the world is that women are much better at this world and decision making than men because it doesn't weigh on them decisions so much. The Gemara says nashim daitan kala, right? They don't contemplate decisions so much. Men make a lot of time, hard time make decisions. When they're shopping, it's hard to make decisions. But generally speaking, it's easier for women to make decisions. They're quicker at this world. They talk quicker. They speak quicker. They'll tell you their mind quicker. They have an opinion quicker. Men are slow. Men take a long time to think. And when they think, they get sidetracked. They're too involved in the learning, too involved in their business. They're not in this world, a lot of men. A lot of men are living in space. That's where they are. And the women just, are more powerful. That's why most marriages, almost all marriages, you ask a man, right, yes, honey, whatever the wife says, the wife is always correct. And you hear this in marriages like a joke. It's like a sad joke. The wife always listens to the wife. The wife has to be happy, right? Because you're not a real man. You're not in control of the woman because she's better at you. You're competing with her also. When you're in a marriage, you're competing for power. It's a power struggle between the wife and the husband. Who's stronger, right? God and the world wants the man to be stronger. That's the proper construct of a marriage. The man, hu yim shalbach, the man should be stronger. He should be the dominant person in the relationship. And to be dominant, right? Dominance is always in decision making. And a lot of times decision making comes out in your arguments, the way you debate somebody, the way you talk quickly and think quickly. So that person will always be more dominant than the other person. So it's very hard for a man to get that level where he's stronger than the woman. Only when he's stronger than the woman, then he can honor her. So, as I said, it's, even between a husband and wife, it's constantly a competition. When you're in competition, you're not going to honor the other person. You're going to look for their negative. You're going to exacerbate their negatives a lot of times, and it causes a lot of lack of shalom bias. So, really, the way he started this chapter by asking this question, that's really the answer that I gave is the correct answer. He goes on a tangent of explaining, basically the yeshivish concept of kavod and people with Talmidei Chachamim, you have to honor them. And based on that, he goes on a whole long tangent about the idea of b'machabed people for their virtues and b'machabed a relationship. A child is machabed his parents, because he's a link in the chain. He respects the idea of the relationship. He respects the wife for two reasons: because of the virtues she has, the positive qualities, and because of the relationship. Because, as we mentioned at the beginning of the book, the author mentioned, he thinks that the whole purpose of marriage is to unify the man and woman. Man is a half a person, woman's half a person. They unite, especially in the bedroom. So then they're considered a whole Adam Shalom, and the Shekhinah comes. So, while I do agree with him that it is important, there's a feminine side, that it's important for a man to learn from a wife. And one of the reasons you get married is to be able to get in touch with the feminine side of the world. Women are very good at the feminine aspects of this world. Women are more into fashion. They're more into, colors. They're more into, the specifics of the Gashmias. They're more into the Gashmias. So if you're around a woman, if you're married, you'll get in touch with your feminine side. I don't think it means unification really means that you have to literally be together. And because you have a wife, she is your feminine side. No, through having a wife, you learn about the feminine side in yourself. A man, this is the one thing Andrew doesn't have, is that because he's not married, at least I don't think he's married, now he's in prison, but in order to be married, marriage forces you to focus and to be good at the feminine decisions and feminine qualities. What's an important color for your sofas? What's an important color? Does your clothes match or things like that? Fashion or things like that. Or what type of food tastes good to become a good cook or something like that. That's something I don't think when I hear from Andrew Tate, he lacks because he was never forced to commit himself in a marriage to a wife and never forced himself to get in touch with his feminine side. He has a very masculine side, a strong masculine side, which attracts women. But he's not a complete man because he doesn't sound in touch, which the author is saying, which I don't think he's exactly saying this, but it's important to be in touch with the feminine side and to be able to feel what a woman feels. It's a very hard thing. Most men can't understand women. They can't understand their emotions, but it's possible to get, when you really study and you really spend time around your wife and you really value the decisions that your wife has to go through and you become a part of it and you become part of the decision making, right? Because you want to, not just because you want to make your wife feel validated that you're also taking part in deciding, what type of, blind window dressing, the window treatment to get. You're actually interested in how your house looks, right? So you get in touch with your feminine side, and that makes you a complete person, which I think he's trying to say over here, and that really is important to become a complete person. But the reason it's important to become a complete person is because that gives you power, and that makes even more that all the women should be attracted to you. That makes you the true alpha male, male. That's why I'm better than Andrew Tate. So, because I'm in touch with the feminine side of myself and the masculine side of myself. So, um, but back to what he's saying over here, that your respect is with your wife is a two-part thing. You're respecting her positive qualities, and you're respecting the relationship that enables you to have the completion of Adam, a man and woman together. In terms of the first point, respecting, I said, we're going to talk. He's going to talk in the next chapter about love. I think that's exactly what love is. Love is when you see the positive, and to focus on those. And it's hard when you're married. When you're going out with your wife, you can see those. When you're married, it's much harder to see those positive qualities. It's important to love her kegufo, love those things that your body would love, right? You naturally love kegufo, like you naturally love your body. Those things that naturally attract you to your wife, you should focus on them and make sure they stick out in your mind, and try to accentuate them as much as possible and compliment your wife on those things. And those things which are, which are negative traits in your spouse, you should try to ignore, unless it really bothers you, and try to not talk about them, and try to, overlook them. And that's really what kavod is. That's what honor is. Someone who's a real husband is in control of his wife. He's won the competition. He's a real man, and he's supreme, and he's powerful, right? Then he can honor his wife. Then he can honor her. And because it's not long a competition, he can, give her honor, and then he's has the ability to mechab the yosem magufo, to go out of his nature, right? Because naturally he sees negative things. People see negative things. They want to denigrate them. They want to, call them out for those things that are negative they're doing to us. Someone who's a big person, who's a powerful person, can say, you know what, I'll forgive her on this. I'll let this go, and I won't get obsessed with this. And that's a really hard place to reach. But that's what the Gemara reads. I mean, you have the yosem magufo, more than your natural limits. Just going back to the beginning, I started talking about, honoring one's parents, kibud av v'em. That's the most famous concept of honor in the Torah. Doesn't say kavod Torah in the Torah. You're not going to see kavod Torah in the Torah. It's like a made-up concept, I think, kavod Torah. But to honor your parents, and one of the mitzvahs is kima, to get up. I don't think kima means to get up and stand up for them, which looks really weird. It means just like on a bus, right? When you're on a bus and there's an old person an old lady that comes on the bus, right? You give up your seat for the bus. I don't mean kima to get up, to give your seat. The same thing with your parents. Kima means if your parents, there's one recliner and you're sitting down in the recliner, right? Even though it's not their recliner, but it's a recliner, you offer it to your parents. You get up for them. You give them the best seat. And in order to achieve kibud av v'em, it's the same thing with a wife. In order to achieve true kibud av v'em, again, you're in competition with everybody in this world, whether they're related to you or not related to you, and you're in competition with your parents, your father, with your mother. There's always a competition, and it's even stronger with your parents, because your parents, because they raised you and they gave you everything that you have, they really control you to a certain extent. Some parents will try to control you more than others, but parents in a certain extent, they don't own you, but they control you, and they bring you up, and they give you guidelines for life. And they control you to be able to become enough of an adult on yourself that you not only are competing with them, you get out of their control, right? You get to an equal level, but you're able to reign over your parents, not in a way where you're a boss over your parents. That's not honoring them, but in a way where you're more powerful over your person because of your quality traits, because of your decision making, because of your own doing. You became a powerful person of your own accord, right? Everyone has that ability through their bechira chavshus, through their decision making. So you become a powerful person. So then you can rule over your parents, not treat them like slaves, but even their negative qualities you could overlook, and you could even give up your seat for them and things like that. And that's the hardest thing with your parents, because your parents brought you up, they give you everything they had. They're, completely dominant over you. And to be able to get to the point where you are not only competing with them, but you're above the competition, you're more powerful than your parents, then you can truly honor your parents and give them honor and overlook their negative qualities, and give them what you call honor for a certain amount of time, feed them, drink, give them to drink, help them, clothe them, and things like that, even when there's negative qualities there, and respect that, and not point out their negative qualities to their parents. A lot of times children do that, unfortunately. That's what I have to say about this chapter. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.